Views and opinions expressed on Deliberately Linked are entirely those of the host, who are completely responsible for all show content. These views and opinions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure in any way any kind of condition, or to promote any specific lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or personal practice. Nor is the information presented deemed to be accurate or verifiable.
What is up, Deliberately Linked viewers? Lace them up and lock it in. Because on today's show, are you the reason history may repeat itself?
This topic, I think we both kind of struggled with. I think, honestly, we've been thinking about it for a while, and we kind of been putting it on the back burner because we want to make sure the delivery was right. Because, like, people will listen to this show, and you might want to draw your own conclusions. So I'll stop you right there. Don't do that. But I love the way Josh titled this, Are You the Reason? Understand this. History does repeat itself. I mean, there's a ton of factually based events that prove this. Obviously, you can easily look at just fads.
Correct.
I mean, there's all kinds of things, and we can put different weight on what do we include as history.
Right.
But I think the most important thing to understand here is we all do have a role. I think your role is whether or not are you affecting history in a positive way or a negative way.
Exactly. And I think that's the whole moral of today's show, guys, is history is going to repeat itself regardless.
Yes.
In a lot of instances, we ourselves have complete control over that. And because of that, sometimes history repeating itself is not always a bad thing, but in more times than not, it's a very negative thing. And it's going to drastically affect not only yourself, but the individuals around you.
I always think of the famous quote, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten out of that.
Correct. I think so too. Yeah.
I mean that as a whole. I'm talking about not just the United States of America. I'm talking about the world. I think we've forgotten where we've been. And as we progress, we are, for a lack of a better term, we're no longer educating generations on where we started. And therefore, we're making some of the same mistakes that had, in some cases, had very deadly consequences.
Yeah.
But I think as it pertains to our lives specifically, if we're not learning from a very young age, I mean a very young age. I have an 8-year-old who's learning life lessons now that she'll apply later as an adult. If she's not, really keeping some type of file, over successes and errors, she's going to then continue to make them through her life, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are going to hear or almost feel where this show is going. And guys, history, whether it was your favorite topic in school or not, regardless of wherever that lies, it is very important that we all understand not only where our country has been, but where our country is now and where our country is going. Because a lot of instances where our country is now is going to depict where this country is going.
Absolutely.
And a famous quote says, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important to understand what is going through now, because I told Ashley, I was like, yeah, this is our topic. We're super excited. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. And she was like, it's on history and like politics. And I was like, yes and no. It's very relatable to that degree. But at the same time, guys, not understanding where we are in life, you're not contributing to, or you are contributing, I guess, to history repeating itself in a negative way.
No, I think you brought up the quote from George Santayana. He was a Harvard professor, and it's a fantastic quote, and it definitely correlates. And I like the other version of it. They say it, people who do not learn from history as well. I mean, you could say learn, you could say study, you could do whatever you want, are doomed to repeat it. And doomed is not a positive term. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that in the sense of if we're not learning, if we're not studying this, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where we really are. And really this topic hit home with me, and I'm very passionate about this. Yeah. I was a history nut. I love history. I think people who listen to the show understand how much I love history. Two of the most influential men in my academia life were my history teachers. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Mm-hmm. My wife hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it. Did not understand it at all. But now she'll resort to me all the time and ask questions about why. And then when you give her the cliff notes of, hey, this is where this was, this is where we went, this is why we did this is why it occurred, this is where we are now, she's like, oh, there are connections drawn. And as a father of 5 kids, one graduated from high school and 3 currently in high school, they're not taught American history.
No, it's different.
No, most of your history classes now are covered up with global history, world history,
Yeah.
or like current events.
Right.
But they're not taught the foundation of America, where we were, what happened, and how we got to where we are now. I remember I had Mr. Beach in 8th grade.
Shout out Mr. Beach.
And if he's listening, probably one of the hardest classes I ever had.
Okay.
His 8th grade history class was a
Okay.
freaking nightmare. Your final was you had to stand up in class and recite the Declaration of Independence,
Okay.
like verbatim memorized.
Wow.
It's long.
Yeah.
I mean, you worked on it for weeks to get it right,
Yeah.
because I mean, like, this dude was actually like breaking down every word.
Wow.
That was your final.
Yeah.
But he
I'll
was
be honest. I don't even know where
dude.
I'd
I
start.
struggled.
I would be
struggled.
like, in the beginning, God created.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, I struggled.
I don't know.
I was like, dang, we hold these truths self-evident, but it still sticks to me to this day.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized what he was doing is he was gifting you this concrete piece of paper on how the world was formed and how we should treat each other.
And the principles.
Yes.
I loved the word you chose to use, and I probably took it out of your mouth too early. But Mark, as we were discussing this topic, briefly before we hit, record, you used the word principle, and I think that's the moral of the story of where this country particularly has fallen so short is
Correct.
the lack of principles.
Well, I fall back on two documents that I don't think we read enough, and I will promise you this: my children probably never read it, either of them, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And this is where I want people to understand this show very quickly. I don't care about red and blue. I don't care Democrat, Republican, liberal, whatever it is. I don't care. That's not what this is about. I want to empower people. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, because our forefathers did too. I mean, it starts out, we the people.
Correct.
We're in charge. And yet right now we're watching a circus.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, currently, guys, 2020, we're in January right now.
Yeah.
And I say this just because I don't know when yourself is listening to this. We've discussed recently impeachment. Went through. They're now in the Senate, and they're basically trying to convict our current president.
They're trying to impeach him,
Donald Trump, and officially impeach him. From
and
the
I don't
office.
care whether you like him, don't like him, you think he should be impeached, don't think he impeached. That's not what this
That's
is
not
about.
the purpose.
That's not what this is about. What this is about is I think as we Americans are watching currently unfold right now, the fact that we have empowered men and women way too much.
Okay.
We have forgotten. I had this conversation. I'll get very passionate about this. My 16-year-old daughter, I watch this stuff. My wife thinks I'm crazy. I watch it because I like to be well informed and I don't want secondhand knowledge.
Yeah.
I want to get it myself.
For sure.
And my 16-year-old daughter was like, "What's going on?" And I'm trying to break this down for her. And she's asking, what does the House do compared to what does the Senate do? And she had no idea.
Yo, shout out to your daughter though for even asking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge at that age. I guess it's important to
Yeah,
understand.
and I don't mean to belittle her at all, and I don't even mean to belittle an education system. I mean, Josh knows we live in a very good educational system.
Right.
She had no idea that the House has Dems and Republicans, and vice versa with the Senate.
Okay.
So I had to break this all down. The House does the investigation, the Senate does a trial. Had to explain all this to her, and she's sitting here looking at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Here's a 16-year-old girl who in 2 years is voting."
Right.
And has no idea how the system works. And then I explained to her, how that really the ocean of movement changes by you vote. And that's why it's so important that you vote. Because the people you vote in there make huge decisions on your life.
Right.
And yet we're empowering these people who are not, and in many cases have no clue and no care what the normal human being cares about. What it comes down to, and people can call me out on this, and I'll tell you this right now. Quick backstory. I spent 4-ish years at the State House in Ohio, passing legislation that is now a bill. It's applied. I went through the entire process with a whole team of people, from writing it to going out and selling it to arguing it, all those things to watch it go. And I know how this works. And most of these people, what it comes down to is dollars and cents.
Correct.
How much money are you putting in my election fund? Where are you
sure.
greasing my skids at?
I mean, that's it always comes down to capital with anything,
Yeah.
any kind of movement in this world. And Mark, kind of going back what you were saying, as far as your daughter and her questions and stuff like that, when I was thinking of really what it means and why I guess at times that history repeats itself, one of the very first things that, that I put pen to paper was a lack of education.
Yeah.
And I think that's you bring up a very vital point there, that simple questions like that at that age, like you said, 2 years away from being able to vote, and we don't even understand how. I mean, so there's obviously a problem in our educational system. And again, as we talk about why or how does history repeat itself, if you don't understand what's going on,
Oh yeah.
you're not going to play any vital role from preventing negative history to repeat itself.
Well, and I want people to understand too about this show. This isn't strictly political.
Exactly.
This is your life.
This is everything.
This is your life.
Right. Yeah.
And they use the term study or learn. Well, if you're not educated and you don't understand how to study or learn, Josh and I were just talking about this. I skated through high school really without never having to crack a book or study. Yeah. I was blessed with the ability to pull B's out of my butt with little to no effort.
Correct.
And then when I got to higher education and I was going through all my medical studies, dude, I was lost. Mm-hmm. And that is life too. If you're never taught how to learn something, if you're never taught how to study in that area and educate yourself, which, by the way, you are your own best advocate. If you don't do that, shame on you.
Yeah.
But if you're never taught those little elements and build that foundation, then how are you ever supposed to make an educated decision? Mm-hmm. You're going to be guided by others. And then in turn, your principles become their principles. Yeah. And that's not what you want. And I said this as Josh and I were praying before this episode. I feel like the word principles has been lost in the human language.
Very much.
We don't think about it. And most people are like going, principles, what's he mean? Principles, like what are the areas in your life that you lean on? Mm-hmm. What are the things that you want to identify with? Yeah. And we've empowered these individuals and we let them make decisions for us. We go on social media, we make these videos, even TikToks now, and it's all built on other people's principles. Yeah. So we want their identity to be ours? Mm-hmm. No, we the people, their identity should be ours, not vice versa.
Right.
They should be fighting for us. What is important to us? And what we're seeing right now, and this is where it's scary, what we're seeing right now is a divide. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a very strong, hateful divide. And if you think the Civil War was bad, don't kid yourself that it can't happen again.
No, it's literally being fermented as we speak. I mean, it's the corruption on both sides of the party, guys.
No, and I'm not holding anybody. I'm not putting anybody on that pedestal to say it's as a result of one man or it's a result of one party. I'm saying everybody's guilty.
Well, we just had Martin Luther King Day and talk about an individual that spoke on segregation and saw and was such a vital aspect to this. And we're literally talking about, in my opinion, guys, I'm no political buff. I'm no history buff. I'm no,
Josh did not want to do this topic.
I wasn't crazy about it. I'll be honest. But I do think about our the two sides that we have. You got the left and the right. And I think about a structure that is put into place that automatically creates segregation.
Yeah.
And it is forcing us, individuals that even might have a similar belief. Like, just because you're Republican doesn't mean you can't believe something a Democrat does, and vice versa.
Yep.
But just because you fall on the left or you fall on the right, you automatically look down or have
instantly disagree
with what an individual has to say, and that's the problem in today's world, guys. And I apply this, and I think of this, guys, just as life. You want to step away from politics from a second. That there are certain ways that I think for sports you structure your team, you structure your locker room, because you eliminate, you knock out any segregation that can be what can happen. Because you think about a football team, and if any segregation that can be formed in that locker room, it is a cancer to the team, and
if there's an ounce of turmoil, you failed.
It will destroy the team. And I think of business. If there's an individual that is in an office setting that holds himself on this podium that they're higher than thou are or whatever, like that is where that is where turmoil begins in an office, and that's why I've always loved the idea of offices that have open door policies. You know,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if Visionary Meals ever has a complex where we have multiple offices, I'll tell you what, there's no doors on those offices.
Well, the greatest leaders are always the most approachable.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's what we don't have pertaining back to politics and our system. Any of our leaders, it's
Well, there's become the separation.
exactly.
There's become. It's not just a little bit. It's a great divide. The only people that can get to them are those with the deepest wallets.
Correct. Yeah. Who's got the money, baby?
And, I mean, people start calling me a liar now, but reflect on your life. Look at where the greatest influence comes from.
Correct.
I mean, that's the truth. And then look who suffers the consequences.
Exactly.
Like I didn't want to do this show because I wanted to sway you to vote one side or the other. I don't care. What I want you to sway you to do is I really want you to think. Do your own research and be heartfelt in your decision. And if that's your decision because your principles led you to that decision, then that's the decision you go with. But I also want you to be able to say, you know what, I can listen to all avenues.
Okay.
I can listen to this person argue this. I can listen to this person argue this. I can do all those things.
Just because they sit in a particular seat doesn't mean they don't have insight to offer.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have valid arguments, that have valid information, and just because it doesn't come to you from this one angle does not mean that you should automatically discard it.
Yeah.
You know, I just look at that and I think we've drawn this line, and there's so much hate. You know, and Josh brought up Dr. Martin Luther King. I am a ginormous fan of Dr. Martin Luther
Shout
King.
out MLK.
You know, and last week, and by all means, the man should be celebrated. Number one, he was an incredible man of God. And number two, he was way before his time.
Yeah.
Way before his time. And kudos to him for being such a forward thinker. And I am a Caucasian male who a lot of people say I can't relate. I'm here to tell you, I have so much passion for the principles that he stood on, and I agree with him in so many ways. And there's one of my favorite quotes that he said, and I'll get this wrong, but the gist of it is this. He said, I will not stand on hate. I will not stand on hate. I will stand on love, for hate is a burden way too heavy to carry. Look at how miserable the world is right now. Because we are wearing ourselves out trying to carry this burden of hate.
Yeah.
We will always, I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the line we twisted, and we will always choose to carry a grievance before we will carry forgiveness. And it honestly, it's so true and so relevant. And, you know, Josh has heard me say this 100 times, and I've spoken in many churches, and one of the topics I always bring up is division. You know, we can talk about Catholics, Methodists, Presbyterian, Baptist, non-denominational. You can go down a whole list, Jewish, whatever you want. The devil wins by division.
Yeah.
And
No,
right
for
now,
sure.
the devil is winning this world by division.
How many times, Mark, do we sit down and be like, man, it just feels like the world is coming to the end?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? On a real note, though.
On a true,
like,
serious
on
note.
a serious note, guys, it feels like the world is coming to an end. And you know, and they talk about, it's talked about in Revelations. And, you know, man, I don't, obviously we don't know how bad things are supposed to get.
Yeah.
But events are happening today that are spoke about in Revelations.
Oh, yeah, they're spelled out black and white.
Very clear.
You're talking about a 2,000-year-old book,
Correct.
and it's still relevant and active now.
Exactly.
And it's funny, I heard a quote from a politician not that long ago, and this politician spoke and said that millennials are afraid of having children because of climate change. And I thought, okay, as a person with children, this politician does not have children. As a person with children, I will tell you that I am nervous for them to have children.
But not because of climate change.
Not because of climate change.
Correct.
Because of leadership.
Yes.
That is why I'm nervous for my
And
grandchildren.
to be even more blunt, because of the evil that is that is
our
flying around.
Our
the country.
leadership has been so corrupted. I'll tell you how corrupted our leadership is. All you got to do is watch the news. All you got to do is look at your social media and look at some of the egregious acts politicians on both sides have done, and then ask yourself, if you did that, what would happen to you? Your butt would be in jail.
Right.
Nothing happens to these cats.
Why is it acceptable for them?
And I read the other day, someone put in the article, there's obviously two sets of laws in the United States of America. There's laws that apply to normal people, and then there's laws that apply to politicians. And that's bullcrap. That's bullcrap. There's no accountability. So if there's no accountability, how can we ever expect them to be honest? How can we ever expect them to do what is right, not for one, but for all?
Yeah.
There's no accountability.
Correct.
And what do? We just continue to create more division. We continue to create more division. And to go back to Martin Luther King, one of his best quotes of all time, and this is why I sent Josh. He said, if we do not unite as brothers, we will perish as fools.
It's a fact.
I don't know any other quote that says so much.
Yeah.
Says so very much. And this is a man who died for that. This is a man who was murdered for saying that we should unite as brothers. And he wasn't talking about just African Americans. He's talking about all of us.
All of us.
He's talking about all of us, brothers and sisters. And in today's world, that quote would read, if we do not unite as brothers and sisters, we will perish as fools. He meant all of us.
Right.
You know,
but yet we create more and more segregation.
Absolutely.
Every day. I mean, we are currently dividing this country as we speak.
You know, what's humorous is this has been going on for a long, long time. I mean, you go all the way back to the 1500s, which is stuff that I absolutely stink and love. And in France, just to speak of France, you know, there was a huge, I mean, just almost full-on war because people started splitting away from the Roman Catholic Church. You know, and then you had the Protestants.
Correct.
And then there's this war for people. Why? Because they all wanted to believe in God. They just didn't want to do it the way that the French did in their Roman Catholic ways. And there's a war over that, straight division. And then you move on to and how does that stuff spread? So that stuff back then is spread. We didn't have social media, so they're spreading that through handwritten letters and all kinds of things. So, and you go to other areas where social media was actually, I compare it to jesters. These are people that were probably not paid well, but their job was to influence others. Yeah. And then you go to like the 1800s, and these guys would send teams of men and women to go to towns before these politicians got there to spread whatever rhetoric they wanted spread.
Correct.
Well, now we just do it on social media. Nothing has changed.
No, not at all.
History is repeating itself in different forms and fashions.
And it's just much more accessible.
And
that's why it's spreading so much faster.
So much quicker.
Yeah.
So much quicker.
And the effect is so much greater.
So that goes back to, does history really repeat itself, and what is the effect? So what have we seen? I'm not knocking social media. Social media is a great way to get information very quickly. But what happens is when it's false information,
correct,
what has changed? Look at the decline of journalism. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember being a child, like if someone misquoted something in the newspaper, the next day it was like a front page ad, you know, saying, whoa, we got this wrong. Nowadays they do it all the time and no one ever says a word.
Yeah.
And they're just purposely putting out false information that you, the listener, you, the viewer, you, the reader, they don't care that you have the wrong information. Mm-hmm. They don't care at all. And yet, so what are we doing? We're not learning. Mm-hmm. We're not learning. We're now going to make very uneducated decisions. They're going to have huge effects, not just on us, but multiple generations.
Yeah. Well, us, and I can say us, millennials, and we're going to categorize that again, are so impressionable.
Yeah.
And you see, that is where the evil falls within a social media platform, because you see someone right in the palm of your hands that you idolize, and if you idolize them, you shouldn't, or even look up to them, or you're a fan of them.
Influence,
exactly.
Yeah.
And they go on a political, or they offer their opinion, and you're like, you know what? I really like that person. I have to agree with what they're saying. And that is what we're seeing right now. Instead of, like Mark said, doing your own research and fully understanding, okay, what is the source?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, number one, obviously, but truly trying to like understand what the message is, where this came from. Is it false? Is it true? Et cetera, et cetera. I think that's other than the false news that you can see so much through your social media platform, I think, and I say us as, you know, individuals, the millennials, and you know,
and I don't want to say it's just millennials.
It's not. No, we know it's
there's
not.
a social media generation.
Okay.
But that generation includes people from 8 years old to 80 years old.
It does. It's just I see so much of it, and you know, I am involved in social media, and I see these political debates, or I see these rallies, and people showing up to these events that they probably have done very, very little research on what they're even showing up there for. But it's what the gay community's doing, so I'm going to show up and do it.
Yeah.
All right. Or it's a gun rally, and so I'm going to show up and be a part of this, when I'm not even educated on what's going on and how we're fighting for the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's
Or
just
they don't even know what the Second Amendment says.
correct.
They don't even know what it says. And I compare this to reading your Bible. There's two ways to read your Bible. There's a way to read it and there's a way to study it.
Yeah.
Your Constitution is no different. There's a way to read it and then there's a way to study it. Why did they write it?
Yeah.
Why is it applicable? They don't know. If you don't know that, then you got to be careful.
Yeah.
But Josh brought up I wasn't even going to talk about this. You just triggered a memory. There is this group of individuals who post videos online, and they're not really connected with a party, political party. But what they do is they go to these rallies,
Okay.
whether it's Trump, Bernie, whoever it may be, and they bring up talking points and they bring up voting points that this politician has been on.
Okay.
And what they do, they go up to this individual and they say, obviously, you're a supporter of X, Y, and Z. And they're like, yeah, how would you feel about these other politicians who may support all these things? That knowing this politician supports these, and this person's like, I would never vote for somebody like that. I would never stand behind somebody who's voted for legislation that's for abortion or against abortion
Right.
or gun rights or against gun rights. And the whole time you're at a rally for the person who voted yay or nay on all of those things.
Right.
So it's like you look like an idiot.
No doubt.
But if you're not educating yourself on that, and I'll tell you too, don't just educate yourself on what are they saying. Like you can watch all the debates and you can get all the quotes. You need to educate ourselves on who they're surrounding themselves by.
Yeah.
I mean, we're right now, some would say this election is the most important election ever in the history of the American people.
I would say so.
Because we're not talking about just Dems and Republicans. There's a word floating around called socialism. And if you don't know what that is, I strongly encourage you to educate yourself.
Flirting with it.
You're talking about Stalin. You're talking about Hitler. You're talking about some of the people that if you could change history,
Correct.
you would go back and reverse those individuals because of the negative effects of them.
Yeah.
And this is a term I do not take lightly. I mean, people who fear for the future, you should fear that. You should fear that immensely. And I'm not saying anybody's running on that card because I don't think anybody is dumb enough to attach their name to that. If they do, dear God, help us.
But I'll tell you what, their principles, they flirt with it.
Once again, that word principles. You need to go back and see what principles they lean on. You need to see what people they surround themselves with and those principles of those individuals because that is where the truth lies.
Yeah.
It's not what you're saying, it's what you're doing. And that's what's super scary.
Well, Mark, what's scary is if my opinion on this, and who cares what my opinion is, but I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
Text world, IMO,
IMO.
in my opinion.
Is that
My
really a
daughter
thing?
sends me that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm outdated then.
IMO. I had to look it up. I had to Google it.
That's new. Yeah, that has never happened in history. That's a new one. No, but I think one of the a drastic problem is, and we just said it, is individuals being outspoken about a particular topic that, like we said, are not educated. If you don't know what the full circle
Yeah.
of what this specific meaning is, or this debate or bill or anything that's going on, then shut up.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've done your homework, then sure, maybe let me hear you out. And you know, I'm thankful that Mark has done his research and is very diverse in this particular topic. But that is the one reason why when he came to me, he's like, "Yo, what do you think?" And I was like, "Man, I love the idea of history repeating itself, but man, this is going to get very political." And man, I haven't done my homework per se. I know what's going on. You know what I mean? I know what's going on, but I'll tell you what I do know though. I do know not to listen to the freaking idiots
Yeah.
that don't know what's going on. And I do know where history has been, okay? And I can clearly see what is going on. I'm not stupid to be able to recognize what is going on in America today, that history's events like, you know, World War I, World War II, the big movement of America first, and you know, before World War I, and then again after World War II, it was motivated, you know, but pretty much by individuals that basically wanted to let rest of the world know or do what it wanted as long as it didn't bother us, essentially.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And you know, so you can see those events going on as we speak, as we walk on a daily basis. That, man, I mean, people are already throwing around the term World War III and this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is happening, and guys, people think, again, people think Donald Trump's so great in the fact that, make America great again. Well, I think we're all wise enough. my man Ronald Reagan is the one that actually originally started that.
Correct.
And you just see these events happening over and over again. And truly, you don't have to be diverse or in the know to necessarily know what's going on. But again, if you are educated about it, I think that's our main problem. People showing up to these events, not knowing what's going on, but trying to have a voice.
Well, history tells us those who scream the loudest have the least amount to say.
Yeah.
Most people who have the facts stick to the facts, and most people who know they have the facts on their side are able to remain calm.
Yeah.
Because they know the minute you want to go after them, statistically, data, facts are going to back up their arguments. People who are screaming are trying to deter you because they want to be the aggressor.
Correct.
They almost want to intimidate you to prove them wrong. And that we see that all the time, and it's unfortunate. And Josh brings up some great points. I mean, we can talk about all the political reasonings for the wars and where we are now. I have a 14-year-old son in this latest issue going on with Iran and bombs. And he asked me one night, I'm sitting there watching the show, and he said, Dad, he said, what stops them from just shooting a rocket here?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real concern. He's a 14-year-old kid.
No doubt.
He's like, am I going to go to bed at night and a rocket's going to hit the United States of America and
Seriously.
potentially where I live?
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, Cohen, I said, number one, I said, understanding the ballistics or something like that, they don't have anything that can travel that far. They specifically don't. I said, number two, buddy, this is a sad reality. A lot of people have the red button. Mm-hmm. And once it's pushed, there's no going back.
No.
There's no going back. And I'm telling you, it's going to be false. It's going to be false information that gets somebody to push the red button. And if you don't know what I mean by the red button, I mean a nuke.
Yeah.
It's going to be false information that does it. Mm-hmm. And when you push it, you can't take it back.
It's too late.
You just can't take it back. Now, I will say this. I can remain passionate yet calm on this entire topic. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you two things. Number one, because I'm a man of faith and God has already predestined all this thing to happen and it's already figured out. Mm-hmm. I believe that hand truthfully down.
No doubt.
To my grave, I would take that to my grave. All this is planned out. And God tells us in his word, before you were even in the womb, he knew. He knew you. He knew your life.
And when Mark says this was planned out, God did not plan this to happen.
No.
He knows.
He saw these events coming.
This was going to
He
happen.
saw how it was going to play out. It's all there. God doesn't, for lack of a better term, he doesn't puppet these things.
No, this is all done by free will.
Correct. But on the other side, Josh is a great person to have this conversation with. When he called me last night, he's like, man, will you explain this a little bit to me? It was perfect because Josh is your typical average American.
Yeah.
You're extremely busy. Mm-hmm. You are so focused on the things that you're trying to do, your purpose and your mission in life, your vision.
Correct.
It's hard to stay up on something like this. Mm-hmm. I am passionate about it, so I do this. Not everybody's like that. There's millions of people who are so busy with kids, lifestyle, work, all those things, they're just getting tidbits of information.
Correct.
And then you got to try to pile that together and make the best educated decision that you can, where in turn, sometimes what we have to do is stop and say, okay, this is super important. Whether I like it or not, my wife's a prime example of this. Whether she likes it or not, my wife hates this stuff.
Yeah, so does that.
She knows that she has to be informed. She has to be informed because this isn't a decision you're making just for yourself. If you're that 18-year-old individual who's voting in this next coming election, you need to realize the vote that you make, you're going to live through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if you're an older person, you have to realize the vote that I make, multiple generations are going to live through my entire decision. And every vote matters.
It does.
And it doesn't just matter the president. It matters who your local representatives are. It matters who your Congress is. All those matter. That's why it's so important that we vote.
And guys, to have the mindset of like, oh, my vote won't matter. I'm telling you what, that mindset is a cancer within itself.
Absolutely.
Because if you walk around thinking that your opinion doesn't matter, okay, then you talk to X, Y, and Z, and then their opinion doesn't matter. Guys, I'm telling you, we win with people, right? We win with people. And if you're not educating yourself, and if you're not doing real, essentially your active role as an American citizen, you're shorting yourself. But think about it this way, especially individuals that have kids or are having kids. You're not only shorting yourself, but you're hurting those individuals as well.
And go back to this. You say, well, we're powerless. No, you're not. That vote is a weapon. If these individuals are going up to whatever hill they're on, and they are creating and making decisions and creating atmospheres that are negative to us, we the people, your vote is your weapon, because you get rid of them.
Yeah.
But in most general elections, you have less than 50% that vote.
I know. It's sad.
It's insane.
It's sad.
And that's how you have corruption. That's how you have people that get up there and say, well, they ain't going to vote anyways.
Right.
We'll just keep doing what we're doing. That's how you have people that have been in office for far too long that are continuing to make ill-fated decisions that we all have to live with.
Yeah.
The vote is super important. But I mean, I don't want this just to be political. No. This goes into your life. If you're not well informed and you're not your best advocate and you're not making these decisions and taking advantage of the decisions that have a direct effect on your life, this is what I told someone the other day. They were complaining about a new school levy that passed, and they're going to build this new stadium. And they're complaining. Did you vote on it? Well, no, I didn't vote. Then you can't complain.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it.
You cannot complain.
Yeah.
You don't get an opinion. And you say, well, that's not fair. Yes, it is. Yeah. If you just said I voted and I voted against it, I said, well, then I understand that. You did your part in the way you felt, and feel free to complain because you openly were willing to vote on it. But if you're not going to take the time to vote, don't complain to me about it.
Right. Yeah, guys, this show is not about, this episode particular is not about complaining about what is currently going on. It's the importance of, guys, we've said it from day one, Deliberately Linked. We're out here to remind individuals and be that foundation that you don't get nowadays on a day-to-day basis of principles, like we've said.
Yes.
You don't get constant reminders about principles, and we've been told, guys, the reason our viewers and our subscriptions are growing at the rate that they are going is individuals have told us is you guys aren't sharing groundbreaking things, but you're saying in a way that is it needs to be heard, or in a way that it needs to be interpreted. And guys, that is what today is obviously about, is the importance of the education that so many of us lack. It's such an important time in history, or we will see things like the Great Depression and the economy collapse in 08, guys. I mean, that particular example, naturally, I think once you climb so high, you always drop. But little things like that. I mean, guys, we're talking about the polio disease that once was created through a vaccine led to AIDS and all kinds of other examples.
And what are you seeing now? What are you seeing now?
Exactly.
With vaccines? So now, for a long time, people were dying left and right, early ages. The infant death percentages were through the roof.
Yeah.
So we create these vaccines, and now we're saying don't vaccine, and so now we're seeing
autism.
Yeah,
right.
and now we're seeing a resurgence of these diseases. And I'm not. You can make whatever
the
decision you want.
Bro, the freaking measles. The measles is coming back. That was everything but extinct. I mean,
exactly. And now you're seeing a resurgence, and you can do whatever you want with your child. I don't care, but realize this: the decisions you make for your child have an effect on other people.
Yeah.
I mean, history does repeat itself. What it comes down to is how does it repeat itself? Right. Is it a negative way? Is it a positive way? There's some history that's going to repeat itself, and it's going to be negative. Yeah, but can you diminish the impact of it? I mean, that's where we play an important role. And I don't want people to say, "Oh, look at these two idiots." No, all I'm trying to do is empower you. Mm-hmm. I don't want people to think, "Well, I'm just here lollygagging around. They'll tell me what to do, where to go, how to spend my taxes." No, you have a choice. You have a voice.
And if you guys don't think, if maybe you're not an individual that thinks that way, but I could name 10 people right now, and right off the bat that walk that feeling that way on a daily basis.
A lot of people.
Guys, if you don't see a problem with that, man, you're wrong. I'm telling you. It's a true issue. It's a true issue. And like Mark said, you feel empowered.
Absolutely.
Gosh darn it, guys.
Feel important.
Yeah,
you are important.
I don't know. Mark, I think this is such a relevant, especially in today's, time right now. It's such a relevant topic.
The landscape now, this topic had to be discussed.
It did, yeah.
And you know what it needed? It had to be discussed from two guys or two gals or two individuals, period, however you want to put it, that actually live it. Mm-hmm. These politicians cannot relate to us. And there was a big award ceremony where a lot of influential people were there, and the guy made a great comment, the MC. He said, "You cannot relate to the average American. If you don't live our normal lives, right, where you're literally going to work and grinding, where you're paying for children, where some of us unfortunately get to the point where you're living paycheck to paycheck and your mortgage is a concern and all those things, the people at the top, they don't get that. No. They don't understand. I'm a retiree. My insurance, my medical insurance costs more than my mortgage.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean I'm an advocate for free medical insurance because I think it's ridiculous.
Right.
But at the same time, politicians, they can't relate to that. They get free insurance for their whole lives. So how would they know what that strain's like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We average people, we're fearing to take our children to doctors because the copay is, astronomical. Or we fear taking them to the doctor because the prescription they put them on is going to come out of our food budget.
Yeah.
They don't relate to that. But if we, the people, don't stand together, if we, the people, continue to divide, we'll never conquer that. They'll continue to take advantage of us.
Correct.
And I think we, the people, not we, the red people, we, the blue people, we, the Democrats, we, the Republicans. No, we, the people, need to come together, stop fighting, stop arguing amongst ourselves, stop accusing each other just to try to win an argument and come together and take our country back.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scary thing, guys. And for those of you that listen to this show and maybe couldn't relate, that's okay. It is okay. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to recognize, hopefully you can at least walk away thinking, man,
Maybe I need to spend a little more time on this.
correct. Because I think we.
I'm
I
not
think
saying
we
you
all
have to
do.
sit there and watch the entire impeachment trial.
No.
I'm not saying you have to do that.
No.
What I'm saying don't do is don't go on Twitter, don't go on Instagram
Yeah.
and read the opinion of some individual. No, go get some authentic information and say, this is what was said. These are the facts. This is what happened. This is the data. This is what's really occurring.
Yeah.
And then make your decision based on that.
Yeah.
Don't go off hearsay. Guys, what does assuming do? It makes an ass of you and me. Don't do that. Don't assume. Go out and get some real facts and then make your decision.
Yeah. No, Mark. So I got one area where I'm curiously confident I think history will repeat itself. And I want to also get something I think, that from yourself where you think history will repeat itself. And I'll go first because I'll give you a second to think about it. But and I say this in a hopeful way, but in a curious way. And I think it's going to be super interesting. And I don't know when. I think it's going to be some time from now because we are in such a catapult stage of technology, and we're just on the brink of a lot of things. But this could be hopeful thinking again. But I think we're going to see a repulse in technology, and I don't know if it's going to come. I think we have a repulse from generations ahead of myself, but I think it's going to come maybe someday from my kids or their kids. And history will repeat itself in a good way, that individuals will truly come to a breaking point of the lack of communication. And I don't mean communication via technology. I mean communication via human beings. And I could be way south on this. Again, this is hopeful thinking, but I'm confident that I hope that individuals will see the turmoil that technology's done, and we maybe can keep some of the aspects. This is a very optimistic viewpoint, but I think truly maybe my kids will be like, why are my parents always just in this device?
Yeah.
I talked to my friend at school today, and it felt good. And
Yeah.
I didn't have my nose in a tablet. And I think we're going to get those.
You're saying even younger generations will notice something's not right.
I think so.
I think that's a really good point.
I don't know. I have a feeling.
I think that's a really good point.
Because you know why I have this feeling is because the generation living in it now, you hear it enough, not just from people like you and I, but you hear it enough from people that indulge in technology and love technology, already talk about the flooding of technology. It's too much. I miss this.
Well, I'll tell you a good example of that.
People take social media break days and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I'll tell you a great example of that. There's one of the podcasts I listened to. The daughter was she worked for the social media division of an NFL team.
Okay.
And she quit her job
Okay.
because of the negative effect.
Wow.
She's like, I was there. I knew I was like an illness. I was like, I had to quit.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and I think it's funny you say it that way because I don't think it's going to come from an older generation. I do believe it would. I agree with you. I think it would be a younger generation. That'd be like, why would I text them when I can just walk over to their house?
Correct.
you're going to see that swing. I completely agree.
Again, that's just optimistic, and that's one area, guys, where I was just like, man, where do I think history is going to
Yeah,
be?
think about that.
I think that
That's actually a
technology
great
will fade.
point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. What about you, though?
I believe we'll see Jesus come again.
Okay, straight up.
Yeah, I mean, he came once, did a lot of great things, obviously, died at a cross that we may be forgiven. And I think you're going to see him come back. I fully believe this and abolish the world of evil. I think history will repeat itself in that.
I love it.
I wish I had way more time to give you something that I wasn't so certain on, and I could give a better guesstimation.
I know I put you on the spot, but that's the best one. I think.
Yeah, that's the one I can guarantee is
Yeah, we
going to
know
happen.
that's
So
happening.
fact check me on that. Feel free, King James Version, whatever New Living, whatever one you want. They all say the same thing.
Yeah.
So no, I mean it's. I want people to. Here's what I want. Here's two things I want. I want people to love each other, regardless of your commonalities.
Yeah.
And I want people to make self-informed decisions based upon the principles that were God-given to them. And then I want to see the results.
Okay. Yeah. Don't be so quick to be influenced by others.
Yes. So I think we have a fun way of ending this show, and it's become kind of like this. It's taken the world by storm. I've been hearing it from one of my favorite listening things for quite a while, and they call "Would You Rather." So Josh and I were joking about it, laughing about it, and we've seen a lot of ones that are definitely inappropriate.
This
and
is PG-13, we'll call it.
PG-13.
So if you're in the car with your kids,
you may want to resort.
this might be the
But it's
time to
really
stop.
funny because it puts you on the spot.
This
And
is
there's another
hilarious.
thing I love too. It's called "Tell the Truth." It's like you don't have a
Yeah.
choice but lying. But it's just a little. Think about this, and the reason we throw this out there is because we talk about some serious stuff, but we want to send you guys away laughing.
Put a little smile on that face.
And it's really where we are. So we're going to play this little game called Would You Rather. And we're probably going to put the responsibility on Josh to come up with our Would You Rather every week.
Why me?
Because his will always be way better than
I don't
mine.
have an answer yet, but I know what the question is.
Yeah. So our Would You Rather topic today, and by the way, this is where I would challenge all of our listeners and our viewers, send us your Would You Rather. Because we would love that. I love being surprised. So the Would You Rather today is, would you rather orgasm loudly every time you farted, or would you rather fart loudly every time you orgasmed? I already know what I'm picking.
Would you rather orgasm
Loudly every time you farted,
Okay.
or would you rather fart loudly every time you orgasmed? Both of us are married, so when I think about my answer to this, I have to bring in my wife into the thought process.
I would rather orgasm every time I farted.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. I'll tell you
Good,
why.
good.
Because she's going to be grossed out if I fart when I orgasm.
Yeah, it's going
Okay.
to ruin it all.
Exactly. The whole experience is downhill from there.
Yeah.
There is no cuddle afterwards.
But think about it. Think how glorious it almost could be. Now, the fart aside is obviously kind of gross, and females don't fart, fortunately.
Or poop.
Yeah, no, they don't do any of that. But I could think about the opportunities that I could turn my wife on. You know, Just
My
from
question. So there's a
orgasm.
question within the question. Does the fart stink?
I think so.
It's bad
think
both
so.
ways. But I will say
If
this.
your orgasm can be on point enough.
I will say this though. I do not flatulate in front of my wife. Never have.
Nope, neither.
So this would be a very selfish act because I would choose the orgasm every time I farted. It's like that self-pleasure. Oh. And then, if I have to smell my own stink, it is what it is.
Oh, so many individuals right now are like, these men are disgusting.
It's the weird things that people think about that really
would
get
you rather
you.
orgasm while you farted?
Loudly.
Loudly.
So here's the question. There are times, and I think most people can associate with this, there's times you walked off a silent one, in a store and caught a follower. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think those days are over, though, with that.
Mm.
Because what do you...
Right.
And they're like,
Yeah.
what happened to you?
Right.
And then obviously you're in public and you made a mess. So
Yeah.
you got to think about that. It's strategically, it's a lose-lose.
It is. Yeah, loudly, dang.
But I'm
See,
still
if
going
it-
to choose the first over the latter.
If it wasn't loud and it was just quiet, but maybe it stank. I'll tell you what, that is the best part about having a dog. The dog always gets the
The
blame.
dog always farts.
Man,
The dog
what?
always farts.
Oliver, how dare you?
Or, in my case, children. You always blame it on the kid.
Yeah.
But
yeah, guys.
Would you rather?
Would you
Answer
rather?
that yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that some of you right now are laughing out loud, not like the whole fake LOL in a text, but like the real LOL.
Yeah.
So
I think we're gonna get some good ones from you guys. I'm excited. If not, we'll definitely have some more next week because it's a good topic.
I'm going with the first.
The one
there.
you showed up with, I don't remember what it was now. It was good. It
Oh.
was solid. Oh, gosh. darn
Would
it.
you rather urinate sand
Oh,
for the
yeah.
rest of your life, or every year on your birthday literally poop a brick? I mean, like an actual brick,
like a brick that you build a house with?
Yes. Yeah.
I guess sand.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like people were mixed on that. It was like 50-50.
Definitely sand.
I'm
Does it
thinking to
hurt?
myself, yes, yeah. Well, hey, sand's going to hurt. You got to do that every time. Think how many times you pee a day.
I don't know. Dude, like number 2 is often, boy.
But yeah, so then if you like have to poop that brick though, is that like now you have to go have cosmetic anal surgery once a year?
The question of the day: if a brick comes out, I don't know, man. I've heard some freaky stories. We won't even.
I'm
go
just
there.
saying.
Won't
I mean,
go
the
there.
area is meant to expand outwardly, but yeah, I mean, it's just
That is an exit-only area, just so we're all clear.
And if people are thinking like, why do you guys think about this stuff? Do you know why? It keeps us sane.
Yeah.
If I focused on all the serious stuff in my life every day, I would be a little boy stuck in a closet and afraid to come out. So
I love it. Oh,
Yeah.
good. All right, guys, shoot us your would you rather's. Because I remember when I played ball, we actually kind of did this before some practices, the linebacker group, and we had. I'll have to bring back some of
we
those.
called it would you.
Yeah, because
In the firehouse, we had a lot of woodges, none of
Yeah.
which are appropriate for the air.
No, but
A lot of woodges.
we know y'all have been there, so.
Yeah.
Would you rather? Good stuff today, Mark. Yeah, great show, guys. I know it's a little bit different twist than what we're used to. Mark and I are not, political banters, but it's an important topic that it needs shared with all of us. And if anything, we can all take note that we all can be better in this avenue. That way, we all can have a voice in this avenue because I think it's important we all practice.
I think we just want to
freedom of
empower each
speech.
other.
Yeah.
I want to encourage and empower.
Yeah.
So I prayed before this. If anybody is offended, I pray that they're offended in the name of Jesus, knowing that our God-given, because this is, folks, read the Constitution, read the Declaration.
Yeah.
Those are God-given rights. Those are God-influenced rights. So these are God-given empowerment tools that we want you to walk away with.
If they weren't offended, they are now after the would you rather.
Oh, yeah, that's just humor. We're normal folks.
I love it. Good stuff. Guys, good stuff. Deliberately Linked. Again, we appreciate all of you. We got the best viewers in the nation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, brother.
And
The
stay
best.
with us.
Yeah.
Stay with us. You always get new things. Visionary Meals is continuing. I mean, gosh, Visionary Meals is continuing to grow and do awesome things. If
Yeah.
you don't know what Visionary Meals, like a young lady that called Josh earlier today, call them.
Yeah,
Get on the
please do.
website and call them.
Yeah.
You don't get some answering service. You get Josh.
Call me personally.
Answer all your questions. Take care of you.
Yep, we definitely got you guys covered there. So, good stuff, guys. We'll leave you with that. Let's all continue to get after it. Fight them mental battles. Be your best, you guys. Mark and I are here right along with you. All right,
Fighting the same battles.
going through the everyday grind, baby. So, Deliberately Linked. Signing out.